am Montag, master of illusion. Are you certain you know what reality is? How do you know that at this second you aren't asleep in your bed?
Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into today's movie, over at patreon.com/Drive-In Double Feature Podcast, we have a bunch of bonus episodes talking about new movies, doing fun quizzes, and that's all for $5 a month, and you help support the show. But getting into this week's first episode, we're talking about Wizard of Gore from 1970, directed by Herschel Gordon Lewis, who I have never seen a movie from before, but he is very infamous.
Oh, yeah. Very infamous. I've known about him for a while, and it's pretty much just like, oh, he's the king of gore.
Yeah, he's like the king of gore, gross outs. And the reason he got that is because he was kind of one of the first people to make movies about gore, at least mainstream. He started in his career, and we've been talking about this. You've been sending me posters from some of his early work. He made like nudist
that
movies.
I was researching. I didn't.
It was all research. But yeah, he would make nudist movies because in the 50s you couldn't really show nudity on film unless it was educational in quotations. So these nudity movies are movies that were like guys like peering at women's boobs. They're technically not illegal. It was during a time when like they were very like questionable what could go on film.
Well, that's the thing. They're not doing anything explicitly sexual in these movies. It's always it'd be like a naked person just doing like totally mundane things. It's just like, oh, here they are like cleaning the house, or here they are riding a horse because they're at a nudist resort.
Yeah, but if it was the 1950s, this is the closest you could get to action like that. So that's why they did except for the real thing, of course, but that's why they made good money off of that. But Herschel Gordon Lewis would later go into gore films because that was the next extreme, was showing extreme violence on screen, extreme blood, nastiness, and gore. And that's how we got to Wizard of Gore from 1970, which is actually one of his last movies, not the last, but one of his last movies before he would retire from the film industry, which I didn't realize until I picked it. Otherwise, I would have picked one of his earlier ones to give like perspective. But this is what I expected. It's like a gore movie, and it just repeats itself over and over
and over and over and over
for an hour and 30 minutes. I don't know how anybody puts up with this. You must have just really wanted to see some blood back in the day.
I mean, like, I constantly had to remind myself, okay, this is 1970, so
yeah,
this is like real, like outrageous stuff. But even like by today's standards, it's still pretty tame, honestly. I mean, it's I mean, like, even like there's one scene where a girl gets like pressed by like a hydraulic press like right in her stomach, and there's like not even a hole in her like stomach. It's just like they just throw blood on her stomach and then like put like pig intestines on her, like, ooh, gross, look how
so
nasty.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. I did eat a meal while I watched this movie. Me
too.
Oh, you too? Okay, perfect. So yeah, it really wasn't that gross. And I mean, I'll be honest, at first I was liking this movie. So the setup is I was, I thought it was silly. Like, it's Montag the Magnificent, who's a magician. It's very much like Blood-Sucking Freaks, which we talked about a while ago, right? Where it's basically somebody doing a stage show actually killing people, except here he's using like magic. So the viewers think he's not killing people, but he actually is killing people. And I don't think the movie does a good job of explaining that.
They don't at all, because it would be like you'd kill somebody on stage, and then they're like, oh, well, no, they're totally fine. They would walk off stage, and then maybe like a couple hours later they'd just be dead.
Yeah, that's one of the some of the silliest moments in this movie. But like this movie starts off and it's a lot of talking. Montag does his whole spiel, and holy crap, this is like the whole movie. Like Montag explaining what he's going to do for 5 minutes before he does it. Holy crap, it's so boring.
For one of the movies, it's literally called The Wizards of Gore, and it's supposedly like at the time like one of the goriest movies ever made. This movie is so boring. It's so dull. Like
it really is.
It's like you said, most of it is set up for these outrageous killing scenes, and then they'll like show like the killing scene for like 10-15 minutes, and it just goes on, and then there'll be like some like, oh yeah, I can't believe that happened, and then like the girl would die, like, oh my god, she's dead, we need to go back to Montag's show. And then they would just repeat this process about 3 or 4 times. I'm like,
yeah, it's like 5 days worth of movie where they're like, oh, Montag could be the killer, but let's go back to the show to see if he is the killer.
I thought it was, the only part I thought was funny, it was just like, because I guess the main character is technically like this TV host woman, and her boyfriend or husband or whatever the relation is, and she's like a TV host. She wants to get Montag on her show because she loved his show so much that they're like, I want to get him on my show and interview him. And then she always drags her boyfriend each time, and she's like, oh, we got to go see Montag's show. And like by the 3rd show, he's just like, I'm so sick of watching this show. He's like, oh, have you been to Montag's show? He's like, yes, 3 times already. I'm so bored of this.
Yeah, I get it. Could you imagine? Because from their perspective, the audience, you're literally just watching this guy like hit a woman's stomach with a press, saw a woman in half, and like that seems to be the only thing that happens. It's like, yeah, and there's no blood in their perspective. It's very much like a boring magic show.
Like, do you think did he do any other tricks, you think, or do you think it was just he would do that one trick and then like show's over, guys?
It really seemed like it was that one trick. I don't know.
They did do like, he like beheaded himself in the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe there's some other tricks or whatever, but
yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. See, I thought that was all right. He chopped his own head off. His neck was oozing blood, and the fake head rolls in. I was like, okay, I'm in for a little treat. I'm in for a little bit of fun. But then he saws the woman from the audience in half, because I guess he can hypnotize women and make them do whatever he wants, and saws this woman in half. And it's some of the most bizarre editing. Like, so like you'll see it where the chainsaw goes through and there's blood, and like, because they bought like animal parts, and it's just a bunch of animal parts. It just looks like a gooey mess. And then it'll do like this like cartoon, and then it's from the audience's perspective, and nothing's happening. And once again, these scenes go on for way too long.
Well, what I didn't understand, it was like, did the audience see him like saw that woman in half, and then she just is like magically okay, like they blink their eyes and she's okay? Or
I didn't get it. It wasn't until like maybe the 3rd, because I was just really confused at first. I was like, why does he keep like hurting her and then healing her over and over again? But I think it's supposed to be the audience has like magic vision where they just don't see anything. Like, it's from their perspective, they don't see anything. It's just a magic show, but he's actually just killing these women.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That still doesn't really make so much sense to me, but
no, it doesn't.
and they do such a poor job of explaining it. What was the scene of him like grave robbing too? I mean, what was the deal with that?
I don't know, because he was trying to like, it almost was like he was covering up the tracks, but like he wasn't doing a good job of it. He also kept inviting this reporter that's investigating him over and over. Like, it was him that was like, yeah, you should come to my show. You should watch it again. Well, I guess that worked into his end plan, but still, it's just weird.
Well, they didn't explain the other bit too. At least I don't remember. Maybe I would have maybe I just didn't care at this point, but there's like the very first victim, the TV host girl like hits her hand. She's like, "Ooh, gross!" And then she has like a constant like red mark on her hand, and I guess it like marks her because at first when she meets Montag's like, "Get out of here! I don't do interviews or anything." And then he notices the red mark. He's like, "Oh, never mind. Come in." Like,
yeah. It makes that made no sense to me. So you're not alone. I didn't get the whole red mark deal.
Well, yeah, because that happens to the boyfriend too. He gets a red mark, and he's just like, "Oh my god, there's blood everywhere, like all over my hand."
Yeah, always on like the hand. It's just like a little bit of red like paint on them. Bizarre. It's almost. I mean, I guess I don't know what I'm asking for from a movie like this, but like at least make a little sense. Like make it coherent.
Well, I mean, the problem is too is like these women that he does murder on the stage. We don't know them as characters at all. It's just it's literally like he just takes random women. So I mean, for me, again, this is all 1970, so this is me like talking in the modern perspective or whatever. But for me, gore, like killing scenes, the reason why they hit so good or whatever is you get invested with these characters, or like you know them, or like, oh, like, hey, that guy deserved it, yes, or you know, like, oh, I love that character, that sucks, no. And when it's just like constant, like boom, like dead, gore, and it just doesn't.
You get desensitized in a way.
Yeah. I just didn't care at a certain point.
Yeah, and no, I totally agree. Like there's no stakes, nothing to care about, and just it's just like watching just fake blood effects. And you know, it's just not really, it stops being interesting. It's more interesting when something very violent happens out of nowhere, you know, like when it's just like, holy crap, like some, you know, build up, but there's no build up. This movie was just like an episode, like watching a sitcom where like you kind of just know the beats and it just repeats it, you know. It's weird.
Well, I mean, there's 4 women that get brutally murdered before the police even think about going after Montag, and which is also crazy because first one, yeah, okay, it's a little weird, but maybe we don't need to talk to him. But the second one, where the second woman dies in the exact same way that she died on stage, it's like, hey, you know, maybe we should talk to this magician guy and see
what's going on.
But they don't. They're just like totally like, well, I wonder who it could be. I have no clue.
Yeah, no, exactly. They're the most bumbling cops. It's so stupid because like what happens is these women, they walk down from the stage and they're fine, but then like hours later they're dead the exact way that they died. And then like, okay, so in one of the funniest scenes, this scene did make me laugh, of the first woman who gets chainsawed. She goes into the restaurant to eat, and
that was funny.
She sits down at the table, and then all of a sudden she's just dead. She dies, and she has a chainsaw wound. So like even then, it's like, why is she dying of a chainsaw wound like later? Like you would go after the guy who chopped her with a chainsaw earlier in the night.
Well, I mean, yeah, like, so maybe I was trying to think, like, maybe it was she got murdered on stage. She's hypnotized to where she doesn't realize that she's sawed in half, and maybe like in actuality, like her like intestines or blood is really hanging out, and she's just walking away fine. And then like the trance is broken when she gets to a restaurant.
When she meets her dinner reservation. But no, it's just I don't get it. I just, it makes no sense. But I guess this movie doesn't make sense at all normally. But he eventually grave robs this woman, and I thought the deal would be he would grave rob her and reuse her for magic, but he doesn't really do anything with her. And that scene's really weird. It's shot in all red, and I read into it's because they shot during the daytime.
Oh, you read in?
Yeah, huh?
You read into it?
I read into it. Yeah, good one. But and I guess they filmed this just in a cemetery. They didn't get the permits for the cemetery, and there were people actually there visiting like their families, and they scared like people away because they were doing like the thing where the woman was getting lifted out and everything. I guess I don't know if it's just a story, but they said people were scared and ran away from the cemetery because of this.
Well, noticing how low budget his movie is, that doesn't surprise me that they filmed on like a real cemetery and didn't tell anybody about it.
Yeah, no, and it's just one of those quirks of his movies. I guess another thing is there is a scene in a fried chicken restaurant in this movie, two cops talking at a fried chicken restaurant, and that's actually a Herschel Gordon Lewis like just trope. He loves fried chicken, and he even has a movie with Colonel Sanders in it. So like every movie of his has to have a fried chicken scene. So if we do another one of his movies, it will be there at a fried chicken restaurant. I just think it's funny that Colonel Sanders is in a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie.
Does he survive?
He does. No, I guess Colonel Sanders was extremely hard to work with. Herschel Gordon Lewis had like bad things to say about him. And he wanted to do a bunch of rehearsal takes, and I guess Herschel Gordon Lewis was like, okay, yeah, we'll do a rehearsal take, and they actually filmed his scene, and then they just left. They just lied to him completely because I guess they didn't do rehearsals.
He wanted to shoot 11 takes because for all 11 herbs and spices.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a little too much. The 11 was just his lucky number. He did everything in 11.
I think it's 11 anyways.
I don't know. I haven't had KFC in a little bit.
You're from Kentucky, though.
You think we got a KFC on every corner? Because you're right.
Like in your living room.
You just get it delivered. Well, you can get it delivered nowadays. But I guess going into it, there really isn't a lot because we explained it. Every dang scene, it's over. The researcher and the boyfriend, well, at least the reporter at first she talks about how much she loves this magic show. She's like, wow, this is amazing. And her boyfriend from the beginning is like, okay, it was fine. It was just some tricks, but I don't care.
Well, it's the same deal. I mean, like we said in Blood-Sucking Freaks, it's like, who would want to go to a show like dedicated for that? Mm-hmm. I mean, even if it is like 100% fake or like, oh, I thought I saw a woman sawed in half right in front of me. I'm like, you wouldn't want that. Still, you'd have the mental image of a woman being sawed in half in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. It's horrible.
I was gonna say, what did you think of the guy that played Montag?
He was giving it his all. I didn't hate him. He's probably the one person in this movie that was like, he's over the top. He's way, way over the top, but he was trying. He was. You didn't like him at all?
I didn't think he was that good. No. And supposedly he was a last minute replacement because whoever they had to play the original Montag walked off the set like, oh my god, and they just pulled a crew member off the set and like, you're Montag.
That's so funny. No, I think he's all right. Like, if he's at least the one personality in this movie, because there is no other personality in this movie. There is a really funny scene with the boyfriend and the reporter. The boyfriend sitting at the TV with his friends, and they're all watching her like TV show, and he says, "That's my girl," and he pats the top of the TV. Just silly imagery.
Well, there's another scene too. I remember was the scene where the police are tailing the one girl from the magic show.
Yes.
And it's shot like at night, and I guess they didn't know how to shoot at night because it's like completely blurry and looks awful.
Horrible. Yeah, no, that's a lot of this movie. There's really a lady gets like killed by a press. Like a press gets pushed into her stomach, and they find her body later, and they're like, this was killed by a press. There's not a lot of people going out murdering people like this with something like this. And it still takes them a while to connect it back to Montag.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
I guess we got to talk about the ending because it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's so stupid. I hated the ending so much.
Now, are we talking about like when
the first ending or the second ending?
Well, okay. I mean, both. I mean, I guess getting into the first ending, because the second ending is just like, what is going on? But the first one, he's doing the classic, I'm going to kill everybody through the TV. It's going to be me on the TV killing everybody.
Which I didn't have a problem with that. I thought, okay, I guess that's the next logical step. I mean,
you've seen it before.
So, but I guess it's like if I can kill everybody at once, then that would be ideal. But
yeah.
So he does that, and then the boyfriend is at the TV station, and all these random people just start bleeding all of a sudden. He's like, "Oh my god!" And Montag sets a bunch of boards on fire, and he's like trying to hypnotize everybody to like go walk into the fire.
That's right.
The boyfriend comes and pushes Montag into the fire, but then about 2 seconds, Montag's full body is just like into a skeleton.
Of course, yeah, so fast. But what an ending!
Well, to the first one, you're right.
No, no, the second one. Leading into it, you get to talk about it.
I was going to tell you, like, the ending of the first ending was when it's like the TV host and her boyfriend are eating dinner together at her apartment or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, I can't believe everything's over. Oh, like, I'm so happy to be with you." Mm-hmm. And then the boyfriend rips off his own face, and it's Montag.
Yeah.
It's like,
do you even know what reality is?
And then, oh my gosh, then it turns out she's been the one hypnotizing Montag the whole time.
You can't tell me. I was clapping. This is one of the worst twist endings I've ever seen. She's like, "Yeah, I was the bad guy the whole time."
Because she says, "I'm the one that's been." Because at first he's literally like ripping up like her chest. Yes, like Montag like just jumps on top of her and is like literally clawing at her chest, and
of course it's like looks like chicken livers like poking out of her chest.
Yeah, just imagine if you poured blood on a woman's chest and then just like dumped like slaughterhouse intestines on her, and that's what it looks like. And then she's totally fine, and she's like, "Oh, well, maybe I've been the one hypnotizing you." And then Montag wakes up, and we're at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. So the movie never even happened. Well, let me say something. I wish it never happened.
That to me, that's like, I hate when movies do stuff like that. Like, oh, it was a dream. It was a dream the whole time. Like, this is another side tangent, but there was like a film noir movie I was watching with Edward G. Robinson.
Okay.
And that was like the big twist ending, is that he like fell asleep in a chair and he like imagined like this big noir epic in his head.
And then it was just like, oh, well, I guess that will never happen to me. That's so.
Like, he's like, oh, well, he's like, he was happy it didn't happen. Well, going back home now, hooray! Like,
no, and stories like that are so stupid. If you want to find a way to make your movie feel pointless, or your story in general feel pointless, make it a dream sequence. The whole thing was a dream.
Well, no, now you gotta tell what the second ending is.
What is the second ending? I'm trying to remember.
He's on stage.
Mm-hmm.
She like looks at him, and then like literally the camera starts like shaking violently around, and then like the screen turns into like a bunch of little diamonds.
Yes, yeah.
And then it's like credits.
That's right. I forgot all about that. Like, I think I had tuned out this movie, honestly. Can you believe we died at the end of the movie?
I can't believe it. You're right. I wish I was hypnotized.
Oh God. It's such it is a hard movie to rag on, like, because we're definitely looking at it from modern eyes. In 1970, I'm sure this was shocking. You see this movie in the theater just to see some blood and gore, but I don't know. It still is like very poorly put together. Like, it's hard. It's barely a movie, honestly.
I hated the movie. It's like one of the worst. It's like it's towards the bottom for me. Honestly,
yeah.
There's a definitely there's a bunch of other movies we've talked about I would rather watch again than this one. Not a lot, but I mean, there's definitely towards the bottom. I mean, I don't know about Teenage Caveman. I'd probably rather watch this than Teenage Caveman or
Teenage Caveman's a little shorter.
Well, true. Maybe I would rather watch that, but maybe does this? Yeah, it's still Wired still beats it though.
Yeah, this no. Why? Oh, yeah, no. This is like. I mean, this is bad. This is pretty dang bad. But
I definitely bottom top 10 for me.
I think so too. I need to like work on the big ranked list again, but it's definitely one of the worst movies we covered. Like it's just to the point where I feel like I wasn't even getting a lot of enjoyment out of it. Cause sometimes we watch movies on here that are bad, but you still enjoy them. They're still enjoyable. This is not really enjoyable.
There's at least a couple of elements that I can take away that like, oh, well, I like the effects, or I like the way it looked, or there was some good acting in it, but this one I just don't see any redeeming qualities in here.
Yeah, well, that is
can't wait till the next Herschel Gordon Lewis movie.
Hey, maybe he will surprise us next time.
Well, you said this is like the tail end of his career, so maybe he just wasn't trying then.
Yeah, maybe. I've heard that like his next movie, Gore Girls, is crazy, but in good. But that's coming from John Waters, so I don't know if we can trust John Waters' opinion.
He's always. You're trying to tell me John Waters has bad taste?
No, never. He's never said that he's had bad taste. But yeah, I guess that's a not recommend from the both of us, right?
Big not recommend, yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ryan, try to save the day. What are we talking about on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, we're going to be playing a couple of games next week.
Oh, wow.
Or this Thursday. We're going to be playing some games.
I thought that was just for bonus episodes.
Well, this one's going to be different because we're going to be in a car. So that means we're going to be playing some road games. I spy some road games.
I'm going to play Punch Buggy.
Well, anyway, watch the movie Road Games. It is free on YouTube. You go check it out right now.
All right. Well, I'm excited to watch that. If you like this episode, email us over at driveanddoubleFeaturePodcast@gmail.com. Also, you can tweet at us at DIDFpod. But until next time.
Until next time.
I am Montag